Greetings, YouTube. As of the filming of this video, Laverne Cox, a transgender woman, is gracing the cover of Time magazine. And this is a major event because I don't think a transgender woman has ever been on the cover of Time magazine before. And it has brought the whole issue of transgender people to the fore because there are many people in the world, and particularly in America, particularly those of the socially conservative set, that are upset that there is a transgender person on the cover of a major magazine like Time. And one in particular is a conservative website, a correspondent from the conservative website National Review, who is all upset. His name is Kevin D. Williamson, who is all upset and says that Laverne Cox is not a woman, and that this flies in the face of biological fact. Biological fact is in quotations. And this brings up the complex issue of biological sex, gender identity, gender presentation, and of course sexual orientation. And all of these things are separate from each other. Now, at birth, we are assigned a sex. Normally, those are male or female. There are people in the world who are intersexed. One of the most famous ones I can think of is Jamie Lee Curtis. And intersex people can have external differences. Their genitalia cannot be some transitionary point between male and female. Or they could have internal hormonal changes because they could have internal organs that are not seen by the naked eye. Their hormones may not be traditional for either a male or a female. And sometimes surgery will be done when they're young, or hormone treatment will be done when they're young to change this. And it's to a specific binary of one of either male or female. And this is actually not becoming less common now, and it's changing so that intersex people are being allowed to be intersex. They are being left alone so they can make the decisions when they are old enough to decide for themselves what they want themselves to identify as, male or female. Now that's biological sex. That's, do you ejaculate and can impregnate women, or do you menstruate and produce eggs? That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. Gender identity is a social construct. Gender identity is, do you wear dresses, carry handbags, and carry tampons in them? Or do you dress like a big burly lumberjack and like to do traditional guy things? Now, you aren't born wanting to carry a handbag and wearing a dress. You aren't born wanting to wear lumberjack outfits and swing through trees. These are things that we have learned over the course of our lives, that some traits are things that are feminine and some traits are things that are masculine. These are the things that we as a society have decided are defined as men and women, which is different between male and female. So some women don't have reproductive systems, and some men don't have penises. Your gender identity is not linked to your biological sex, your hormonal structure system. And then, of course, you have gender expression, how the person presents themselves to the world. Do they present themselves in a completely androgynous way? Do they present themselves in a radically feminine way or a radically masculine way? And how they present themselves doesn't necessarily have anything to do with their biological sex or their gender orientation, rather their gender identity. Nothing to do with it. These can be separate things. Then, of course, we have sexual orientation, which is who does the person find themselves romantically and sexually attracted to. Yes, this is a more subtle and complex worldview than was considered the norm 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or even 20 years ago. But that's okay. It's all right that they're a little more complex. So, I'm going to link to an article about that National Review. Now I'm also going to link to some pages that deal with Transgender 101, like what does transgender mean? Then there's the GLAAD Media Reference Guide, Transgender Glossary of Terms, which is very useful. Covers some of the things I just talked about: sex, gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. Then it talks about Terms such as transgender, transsexual, transvestite, which is derogatory, transition, sexual reassignment surgery, cross-dressing, also considered derogatory, gender identity disorder, a rather archaic and twisted way of looking at something that isn't a disorder, and intersex, which I have already mentioned. Then you have things that are preferred terms, like problematic terms, for transgenders or a transgender, right? You would normally say transgender people or transgendered person or transgender person. Problematic terms such as transgendered, which is awkward, just say transgender. Problematic is sex change, preoperative, postoperative, say transition. And you'd say gender reassignment transition, because your person's gender is being, their biological form, their body is being reassigned to what makes them the happiest and most content. Then there's some defamatory terms such as deceptive, fooling, pretending, posing, or masquerading, which is not true. If someone has a gender identity of a woman, and they print themselves as a woman, and they think of themselves as a woman, they're a woman. It doesn't matter what their biological sex is. Defamatory terms such as she-male, he, she, it, tranny, which is two different ones, shim, and gender bender. All of them can be considered defamatory. Though gender bender I've actually heard used as a temporary term. For example, if someone is having a party where people are presenting themselves differently out of entertainment purposes, I have heard that term used in what I consider a non-defamatory way, but I can understand why it is considered defamatory by many people who are in the transgender community. I get it. I'm going to impose that. I'm not going to use it, but I've heard that used that way. Defamatory is a bathroom bill, which is frequently when transgender people want to receive the same types of protections that people who are cisgender. They are often couched in the terms that, well, this bill would have let everyone use the same bathroom, that kind of thing, to cause a furor, to cause a controversy where there should be none. Because again, if you're in a men's bathroom and the people around you are all appear to be men, what do you care whether they are biologically male or not? You go in, you do your business, you leave. That's just the way it is. That's how adults function in the real world. Then we have a page. Where is it? Gender-neutral pronouns. For example, using... There's a handy little chart down here. For example, traditional masculine terms. He laughed, I called him, his eyes gleamed, that is his, he likes himself. Traditional feminine. She laughed, I called her, her eyes gleamed, that is hers, she likes herself. Gender neutral, which is singular they. They laughed, I called them, their eyes gleamed, that is theirs, they like themselves. Gender neutral Z, which is Z-E. Z laughed, I called her, H-I-R, her, H-I-R, eyes gleamed, that is hers, H-I-R-S, and Z liked himself. Now, I actually don't like the term her because I consider it confusing with the traditional word her, H-E-R. And I'll use Z because it's different, it sounds different, it looks different. I tend to use singular they, or I will frequently use the person's name if I know their name. If the person is, say, Adam, I will speak about Adam directly. Adam likes this, Adam likes that. It can occasionally sound a little formal, but it avoids a gender assignment to what Adam wants the world to know himself to be. What if Adam doesn't always identify as a man or a woman? So occasionally I will use that myself. Again, it's slightly awkward, but I don't think it's any more awkward than the singular they, which is also respectful. And of course, what you can do is you can ask the person that you're speaking to, what do you prefer for your pronouns? What do you like to be called? I, him, his, he, those are my pronouns. That's what I like to use. I am cisgender, and that's what I'm comfortable with. It's what's appropriate to me and for me. So if someone asked me that, that's what I would say. And if I were to meet someone and there was any kind of ambiguity, and I could ask, what pronouns do you want to be called? That's respectful. Now, yes, it's very likely that your average person you're going to bump into is not going to be a member of the transgender community, because they're not the most common type of people in the world. But that's okay. They are still deserving of respect in the world. They are still deserving of our respect and our consideration and our empathy and sympathy and compassion. I think that's what we owe everyone. That we should treat all people that way, regardless of their sex, their gender identity, their gender expression, or their sexual orientation. These things should not matter when it comes to human rights and civil liberties. That's just how we should treat people. A radical concept, I know. So, this has been a little bit of that sex is complicated and a little bit of transgender or 101. So, ask questions. I'm not an expert, but I do know something about this. I know people who are transgender. My ex-wife is transgender. I have a friend named Cara that's transgender. I know people who are in the LGBT community. I know people who are bisexual, who are pansexual, who are gay, who are straight. So I know people everywhere that in all these different categories. And I know people who express themselves differently. And all it takes is a little bit of respect. That's it. It isn't rocket surgery. It isn't politically correct. It's just wanting to treat people humanely. If you ask someone what their name is, and they say their name is Bill, out of respect, you call them Bill. You don't call them Stanley. Stanley isn't their name. That isn't respectful. It gives them the impression that you don't give a crap what their name is. But in that same manner, you ask what their pronouns are. If they tell you, I'm a man, then okay, you're a man. I know someone who is now named Zach. Okay, your name's Zach. Legally changed. Zach has changed his name to Zach, and now presents himself to the world as a guy. And what do I care? I mean, I care, but I mean, what does it have any effect on me? It doesn't. All I did was change the name I used to the person. That's it. Takes almost no effort whatsoever. My sister changed her name legally from Jennifer to Hope. Why? Didn't like Jennifer. Likes Hope. So I started calling her Hope. Why? Out of respect. That's it. There is nothing more to it. And that's what this whole issue is. It's an issue of respect. Many social conservatives don't have it for people that fall outside of what they consider to be traditional behaviors. Okay, tough. There is no group of people small enough, no minority group small enough that they are not deserving of human rights and being treated humanely. We are all part of humanity, and we are all deserving of empathy, sympathy, and compassion.